my experience with politicians has always been that they have no idea what they're banning. They just don't have the education. And that does not go just for vaping. I think with the majority of laws that are created, the politicians just don't have time to sit there and really evaluate the pros and the cons or really understand what the effect of this vote that they're going to give is going to have on the public.
Hello, world. Welcome to the Vaping Unplugged Podcast. Everything you need to know about vaping and tobacco harm reduction.
Hello and welcome back to Vaping Unplugged. This is the World Vapers Alliance podcast where we talk about harm reduction, vaping, pouches, news, activism, and of course, politics. Today, I'm very happy to welcome Dimitris Agrafiotis, or also known as the Vaping Greek, with us. He is EU Director of Operations at Monster Vape Labs and former Director of the Tennessee Smoke-Free Association, and obviously one of the most outspoken harm reduction voices out there. And therefore, we are very happy to welcome you. Thank you for joining us. How are you doing?
Such a pleasure and an honor to be here. Thank you very much. I'm doing well. I'm good, working a lot, but yeah, being in Greece always helps.
Yeah, sunny Greece definitely
Sunny
helps.
Greece, very beautiful weather right now. Beautiful.
Maybe before we go into the harm reduction vaping topics, may I ask you to explain a little bit what you're doing, who you are, how you came into this strange world of vaping?
Yeah, I'll try to summarize it briefly, but I discovered vaping in 2000, early 2011, on a whim from a friend. Trying to quit smoking at the time, impossible. I tried every available government-approved method and non-government-approved method at the time, including hypnosis and pills and patches. So when I discovered electronic cigarettes, I was able to switch immediately. I quit smoking from the first try that I took a puff on an electronic cigarette. So I was just infatuated with the technology and just tried to discover more and more about it. And I got online. I started researching. Of course, at the time, we didn't have shops or vaping was not as prevalent as it is now. But I quickly realized that this product works so well that there's absolutely no way that the government is going to leave it alone because it does have the potential not only to benefit public health, but also has the potential of ruining a lot of cash registers and various fractions that are used to people smoking in order to bring in money. So alongside by discovering vaping, I also started to educate myself on legislation and laws and regulations and bans at the time, which were rare, but still did exist back in 2012 and 2013. So I got into the advocacy role pretty quick. I started the first independent state association in the United States called the Tennessee Smoke-Free Association, a model that was followed by various other states in America and a very successful model even today. Even me stepping down this year, I defeated 67 pieces of legislation. I did not lose anything in Tennessee. It's probably one of the most vape-friendly states right now, including Florida, which had followed the same model as I was using. And at the same time, it became a full-time job for me. Advocacy, even though it was a volunteer position all these years, I actually moved into the realm of the business side of vaping as well, too, because of my education. And I was really more than the products themselves, which I still design. Mostly I was concerned about the different laws and the regulations that are being passed, not only domestically, but internationally as well, too. So eventually, after various other positions, I now am the EU Director of Operations for Monster Labs and their new operation here in Greece, which distributes their products all across Europe. So in brief, that's the summary. Of course, there was some YouTube involved. There was a lot of advocacy involved. The limited resources that we had to spread the message, we try to utilize them as much as possible. And still at it. I'm here now in Greece. I've taken on the role of vice president of the Greek Trade Association to try to help here as much as I possibly can, since I'm not in the United States anymore. But I also keep up with my colleagues back in the States and try to help them with, the arsenal of tools that I've collected over the last decade.
Yeah, wow, that was a really nice summary from as we can hear, you did already a lot in the world of harm reduction.
Yeah.
Maybe for the few who don't know, what is Monster Lab actually producing, selling, doing, and what is your job there?
Yeah, so Monster Vape Labs is a top e-liquid manufacturer based out of Orlando, Florida. They're one of the top companies recognized globally for the quality and the flavorful products that they create. Of course, across the board, 10 mLs, disposables, and bottled liquid. Although I will tell you that the majority of sales, over 70% of the sales for the company, is still bottled liquid, which is pretty amazing in this day and age of disposables. But I started working for Monster Vape Labs in 2018 as their consultant. I did a lot of work in the background to build their ISO facility in Orlando, Florida. And I also consulted the owners on various regulatory topics. I performed PMTAs for them with the FDA. I have assisted them through the years with TBD registration, taxation in various countries now, which is overtaken. It's becoming that's a full-time task. But the goal for the company was to be able to get their products in the various European distributors quickly, effectively. And the idea that we had a year ago, it took us a year to utilize this idea, was to create a European import warehouse here in Greece where we can bring all their products from Florida and then distribute them very quickly to the various countries that sell them. We launched with 6 countries now: Germany, Italy, Spain, France, Portugal, and Poland, and of course, Greece, which is my home country. With a goal by 2024, by the end of 2024, to be servicing 17 countries. One of the biggest complaints that we have from companies that are ordering from America, it takes 2-3 weeks for shipping. Then we have to deal with customs and with duties and with fees. Thankfully, the Schengen area and the European Union system allows us now to create door-to-door service for the distributors from Greece within 1 or 2 days, no matter what the quantity is, and bypassing all the other logistics hurdles that we would have from a country outside of the EU.
Yeah, and I mean, listening to US, but also European politicians, I assume 99% of your revenue is coming from tobacco flavors and
Yes, of
the fruits and mints we all don't need because adults don't
course, of
like them, and
course.
it's only for kids, right?
Although I will tell you that Tobacco Monster is a really good tobacco flavor line. Definitely not my preference after 13 years of not smoking a cigarette. And it's definitely not the top in sales. With our own data, because one of the things that Monster Vape Labs does very well is collect a lot of data from their loyal customers. We found that 79% of our customers prefer fruity and menthol flavors, and bakery flavors as well too. Bakery are very, very predominant as well too. Overall, the category of tobacco by itself will be under 11%, and then the flavored tobacco will be under 20% from the customer base. And we're talking about a company now that distributes to 50 countries, right? So it's not that we're just getting demographics from the United States alone; we're getting them globally. And definitely flavors in every study that I have participated in. I participated in the large Farsalino study a few years back that we created for the FDA, but also in smaller studies that are state specific for Tennessee. And all the studies that I have been a part to, and in everyday life, when you talk to people that are using the product, flavors is probably the most important aspect of vaping in its cessation effect as a tobacco harm reduction tool. So extremely important that the flavors are around, and a variety of flavors is extremely important as well too, as adult palates tend to change, and you have to have available different products in order for you to stay off cigarettes.
Yeah, and you already mentioned Professor Fasolinos. His newest study, I think, was very interesting because there it showed that at the initial phase, when people switched, that the tobacco liquid is at about 20%. But when they looked at people when they quit completely, then it's down to 8%. So
Yes.
tobacco tastes do play a role, but they are diminishing, and it shows that we need different kind of tastes, right?
Most of the customers that I talk to that are first time vapors, and when I interact with them in various shops, they come in and they want something that tastes like a cigarette, because that's what they're comfortable with. That's what they're used to. The concept of them trying a flavor like strawberry cheesecake might be a little bit unfamiliar. territory for them. But what I can tell you is that the receptors in one's mouth after smoking for a very long time are blocked. So when you stop smoking, these receptors in your taste buds in your mouth start to open up again. And this is why we quickly see that within a few days, if not even sooner, a person that does switch to vaping with tobacco quickly will come and say, well, this does not taste good. Now, imagine this. Somebody was smoking a cigarette maybe a week ago, and now they're using a tobacco flavor, but they come in and they say it does not taste good, right? Even tobacco flavored e-liquid tastes better than actual cigarette smoking. But why is that? And that is because they have stopped smoking, they have stopped taking all that poison in their mouth, and now they're starting to taste things better. So this is why quickly they'll switch to a flavored product, and usually like an intense flavor, like a cinnamon, something that's a little bit even more intense versus the other products that are out there, and eventually gradually going to make the switch to something more tame. But it's just the data is overwhelming that adults like flavors. The data is overwhelming that flavors are a vital tool in keeping people away from cigarettes, and it's clearly a tragedy to try to remove something from the market simply from the fact that some kids are experimenting with a product that, if it was not on the market, would allow these kids to experiment with traditional combustible tobacco that kills billions of people every year.
Yeah, I think every ice cream shop can confirm that adults like flavors as well, and
Yeah.
they don't stick
Imagine
to
if we
one
banned
flavor.
everything that is in common between adults and kids. Then it would be a very very boring life for adults as well too. But ultimately, I think that in the scope of things, I think that from everything that the governments have tried to do over the years, and trust me, I have been involved in this very heavily, even since 2015 when the first bad stories started coming out about batteries exploding in America. This was all a ploy. This was all a strategy developed by the opposition to give vaping a bad name and tried to eliminate it from the market. And then when they tried with batteries, that didn't work because e-cigs don't explode. Bad use of batteries explodes, but you never heard that in a story. Then Ivali came out. They tried to blame vaping on this. That didn't work. All they have left, COVID came out to try to say that if you're vaping, you get COVID. That didn't work. So the only thing that they have now left is flavors, and this is what we're seeing: this mass media campaign attack of using literally kids as peons. I mean, it's criminal and it's corrupt by using youth to create an agenda against the product that has such a huge potential to change public health.
Yeah, that's perfect segue to the policies and actually the decision makers and politicians. Do you think that applies to them as well, or are they not just informed well enough and they read these stories and then see, oh yeah, kids are using flavors, so we need to ban them, or are they in the same category and actually want to ban vaping, but no, they missed the point where they can actually just ban it because the backlash would be too strong. So they say the second best option is to ban flavors.
I think having extremely a lot of experience with politicians on a city, state, local, federal level, I have talked to them all, from just a city councilman all the way up to senators, even to the FDA. My experience with politicians has always been that they have no idea what they're banning. They just don't have the education. And that does not go just for vaping. I think with the majority of laws that are created, the politicians just don't have time to sit there and really evaluate the pros and the cons, or really understand what the effect of this vote that they're going to give is going to have on the public. And that comes a lot because, again, our opposition has done a great job. Imagine if you're a parent and you have a school board come and tell you this is bad for kids. We need to get rid of it. Of course, as a parent, you're going to trust the school board, and you might not look into it too much because you're thinking that these people really care. And this is what's happening with politicians. You have anti-vaping groups like American Cancer Association, American Lung Association, that go to these politicians, present a piece of legislation, and saying, we're trying to save the kids. Obviously, the politician is not going to read the entirety, and they're going to vote based on the feelings and the trust that they've had with these groups over the years, that they're actually trying to do the good thing. So I think it's extremely important. We've always failed, I think, as an industry to do a good job of educating the legislators with actual facts more than feelings. Sometimes, us vapors, we like to talk with feelings, but feelings don't really translate very well with politicians. So I think that we need to do a better job. We need to really increase the way that we project and try to educate these legislators to at least get both sides of the story. A few years back in Tennessee, we had a short-term senator that was filling in a seat that wanted to pass a law to tax vapor products. And of course, she received a bill from the American Lung Association. I met with her. She wanted to tax 5 cents per millimeter for all liquids. And I walked into her office and simply explained to her in a very professional and business-like way that if you think that Juul or some of these smaller pod systems are a huge problem because they're delivering a lot of nicotine, by passing this law, all you're going to do is give them the edge, because a small pod of Juul that contains sometimes up to 20% more nicotine than a bottled liquid will only pay 10 cents in tax. However, a bottle of liquid nicotine that contains much lower levels of nicotine is going to pay $5 tax. And she looked at me dumbfounded and she's like, I did not know. And so just by having this conversation, obviously she still hates vaping. That's not going to change. She wants to remove all tobacco products from the market, which is not, of course, a reality. That was her dream, is to be known as a senator that removed all tobacco products from the market, but that's not going to happen. But simply that discussion was able to put a break on her making a move that potentially would be detrimental to adults that were using open liquid and at lower nicotine levels. And it would have the reverse effect of what she was trying to do, which was save the kids. It would actually benefit the kids because it would make the pods more cheaper than open liquid products on there. So I don't think that it's a matter of that they're thinking that they're doing the right thing. I think they're influenced by these powers that want to see vaping go away into thinking that they're doing the right thing without getting all the facts and all the data that's out there and how many millions of adults are using these products.
I mean, the positive spin on this whole thing would be that they should be or could be open to arguments from the other side as well, if we provide them the right arguments. And since you worked on so many policy levels, do you see differences? Is it easier on the very local level, or is it easier on a national level? Because I sometimes have this feeling, especially when we come to the international level, WHO or something, if they say something, all local politicians take that as sacrosanct, and this must be the truth. And everyone who disagrees is, a crazy conspiracy theorist or something like that. Do you see there are differences on the policy levels?
I don't think it's so much a difference in the mindset, but I do think it's a difference in financial gain. So I have always been a proponent of trying to finance our efforts. And unfortunately, in any kind of influencing, lobbying, or even trying to talk in different levels, that requires money. It requires for the industry to be able to fund something like this and put the right people to have these right meetings at no matter what state level you are, what government level you are, right? Obviously, when we get to the levels of the WHO and some of these other groups that have a tremendous amount of money to spend and have a tremendous amount of money to create campaigns, it's going to be more influential. So I think that it's not, as long as we can steer the industry to fund and provide funds aside from marketing, where a lot of people spend money, to spend some money into bringing on board some people that are able to get into those various positions at no matter what level, and try to give our side of the story as well too. Ultimately, when we're talking about tobacco and tobacco as a whole in the planet, it is a global economy structure, right? Yeah, I mean, there's literally economies that have been built on people dying from cigarette smoking. So it's a tremendous hurdle for us to go up against anti-vaping groups, anti-smoking groups, or even pro-smoking groups, because a lot of the healthcare industry and a lot of the pharmaceutical industry depends on people to smoke in order to stay in business. So ultimately, I think with the right amount of funding, I think with the right amount of the right people to be able to relay this message, I think that we can reach every level that is out there. Start though at your local level, because every person is influential, and somebody at a smaller level might be able to help you reach into the top level as well too. It's been a strategy that I've used a lot in a local level in Tennessee, starting with city councilmen and starting with certain cities, and then moving up to Congress people and eventually senators, to be able to get my message across. But trying to use those connections, especially people that was able to steer in the right direction and possibly see things from a balanced perspective.
Yeah, and I think that is the perfect example that consumer voices matter as well. No consumer organization or even any industry organization can contact all politicians in this world who want to ban vaping. So I think everyone needs to be active and raise their voice and play a part. And almost at the end of the podcast, let's move it a little bit to the future, since COP10 is around the corner, and it's probably worst meeting for consumers and industry to have any say. But what do you expect of it? Do you think it will be this horror show which we hear and read already, or do you see any positive outcome
There's
out of
yeah,
COP10?
there's absolutely no reason for me not to believe it's going to be a horror show, unfortunately. But on the other hand, I'm trying to remain positive and optimistic, because we already expect the outcome of this, right? We know that we possibly cannot have a say in it. We know it's going to be bad. We know that the powers to be are going to demonize us and try to make us look like we're peddling these products to kids and trying to get the kids hooked. But I will tell you, the biggest piece of advice that I can give you, as somebody that has been in the United States so many years trying to get people motivated and activated, a lot of people give up. A lot of people give up because they can't see wins. So a lot of the people in the United States just felt deflated and defeated after fighting and fighting and fighting. And then eventually a state ban comes and bans flavors in their state. What we have to do here in Europe, and what we have to do on a global scale, is try to remain positive. And we try to get people to maintain that high level of activism and that high level of positivity, trying to reach the people that they elect into office and let them know how this product has affected their life. There's nothing more influential, I think, in any kind of a jurisdiction where a politician is involved than the actual people that vote in that jurisdiction. I can call somebody that's going to be in California and talk to him about vaping. He's going to say, okay, well, this guy is a good guy. Dimitris is a good guy, but he votes in Tennessee. I don't really care what he has to say about vaping, which is something that we've made a mistake a lot of in the United States over the last decade. So no matter what comes out of this meeting, nothing's good. Nothing good is going to come out of it. But no matter what comes out of this meeting, I think we always have to remain positive, and we have to stay on target and try to influence and change the mind of those that are coming out of that meeting with the data. The data is surpassing it. We're at a high time, an all-time of positive data of how this product benefits smokers, right? And this mountain of evidence that keeps growing and growing, at some point is going to hit them in the face, and they're not going to be able to deny science anymore, and they're not going to be able to deny the fact that this product is definitely a viable option for smokers that have tried to quit with other available options and were unsuccessful. So ignore, what comes out of this meeting, and stay on track. Don't let it sidetrack us, because it does at sometimes sidetrack us and takes away from the eye of the prize, and we feel deflated and we feel like we've lost, and we have not lost anything yet. We're still here, and we're still fighting for this product.
Yeah, in celebrating those small successes, I think that's definitely very,
Absolutely.
very important. And we have seen it with the European Beating Cancer Plan, where the first time an EU institution has acknowledged vaping helps people to quit smoking. And that is actually a huge deal, even though the whole document is obviously not perfect. But I think we
Correct.
need to get used to small fighting back, small pushbacks against the super crazy regulations, and then at the same time getting small wins in there as well, especially
Generally
when it comes to
healthcare
harm
works
reduction.
like Yeah, generally healthcare works like this. We see this in America a lot too. When COVID first happened, the Surgeon General at the time, Jerry Adams, was telling everybody, don't use masks. Masks are worthless. Keep them for the hospital staff. You know, And of course, all the healthcare professionals are, oh, look at the the Surgeon General, and then a month later he was all about masks. Of course, the entire community afterwards was like, oh, you have to wear a mask, and then we saw the debacle that happened over the next year with masks. But most of the healthcare works like this. So the more people are switching to our side, I don't think that any medical professional that has taken the Hippocratic Oath that truly believes in the well-being of their patients, once they see the data, are not going to support vaping. They're going to support vaping, obviously. But it's a slow process. It takes one mind at a time. It takes one health professional at a time. And the more that people are switching and acknowledging that vaping and electronic cigarettes is a viable option for smokers, we're going to slowly see the tide is going to turn. It's going to be slow, but it will turn, and eventually there's not going to be any denying it once more people and more health professionals are on board.
Fantastic. I think those are the perfect final words. Just as a small anecdote, we try since 3 or 4 weeks now to come up with a very nice, most accurate scientific research papers listed in a nice way to present to politicians. But the evidence, every second day you have a new study, and we're like, oh, we need to add this. We need to add this.
Yes,
We need to add this. It's impossible to keep up with it, which is good news. And I also think
it is good.
At least in the long run, it will be clear that vaping and similar products will displace smoking at some point.
I'm a living proof. I've been vaping 14 years. Look, I'm the healthiest I've ever been in my life. So I donate my body and my lungs to any health professional that wants to examine me. And I'm happy. I'm healthy. And finding vaping was, aside from the birth of my children, I think probably one of the most significant points in my life. And I owe, I think, my life to it. I'm still around because I was able to quit smoking via vaping.
Cheers to that. Cheers to that. Thank you so much for joining us again. Always a pleasure. Hope to see you soon again in person at some expo, maybe.
Absolutely.
Thank you, and always nice to talk to you. Have a good day.
Thank you, Michael. I appreciate it.